Hello, welcome back to another installaciones of What Would Lou Do. If this is your first time visiting us, then welcome for the first time. If you are a returning viewer, we thank you very much for your continued support. You guys mean the world to us. So what's on the menu for today? Well, today we are looking at the Springfield Prodigy. These are the 4 1/4 inch. They come in two sizes, the 4 1/4 and then a 5 inch. You see here we actually have two. And the one I'm officially reviewing is this one right here. This one is the one that has the 3200 rounds, and this one has 450. What I thought to do was to show you how well this one has worn over time compared to one that's been fired less. So we'll break them down and show you guys all that good stuff. This is our first leap into this platform. Before this, it's been nothing but striker fire. And so I've got a lot of information to share with you guys. It's not going to be a really long video, but if you're one of those people that's expecting a 5-10 minute video, this ain't for you. So this one is the one that I've had the longest. I've had this for a few months now. We got this in August, actually. Speaking of which, we want to thank Doug down at SC Gun Store. It's in the Myrtle Beach area. He hooked us up. He did a price match for us. They actually have a channel called Battery of Arms. If you guys want to check them out after the video. He's a like-minded fellow and Second Amendment supporter, things like that. But anyway, so Douglas, thank you much. Definitely intended to shoot this video right as I got it. I was going to do a unboxing / first impressions, but when I got it, I was like, I should at least fire it a couple times to see to be able to give my thoughts on it, right? Because we're not worried so much about what all comes with it and how nice it looks, but how does it fire, right? Because the main function of a firearm is to shoot it. So if it doesn't shoot well, what's the point? So went to fire it, and I was not good with it. I thought that I had a problem with it. Turns out it was just me, problem with the operator. And then there were a ton of other delays with the optics. I went through a period to where I was getting a plate for a Holosun, but then I decided I didn't want to go with that. So then I went with a Vortex, had a problem with that. Then borrowed the optic from this one, had a problem with that. This is the third optic that's been on here. So there have been many delays in getting this video to you guys. That's the backstory on this. So as I said, we're gonna cover this thing in depth, let you guys decide whether you think it's right for you or, if it's not. So what do you get when you purchase one of these? Well, that kind of depends. Standard, you will get your 2 magazines, which is a 17 rounder and a 20 round magazine, and it will come in this little pouch right here. I guess you could call it a range bag. It leaves a little bit to be desired. Slip your 2 magazines in there, and then the gun goes in right there. I would prefer to see 3, 2 17s and a 20. I guess I've gotten spoiled to like all my SIG kits, right? They usually come with 2 of the standards and then 1 of the extended mags, but that's what you get. It also comes in this box, cardboard box right here. This one came with the same thing. It actually comes in a big white box because of that box and the optic and all that. It does come with an optic plate. I mentioned that a few minutes ago, and I will get into the specifics of that once we get to it. But this is one of those modular systems. It's not a direct mount, so you will use plates based on what optic you're going to go with. So that's what came with this one. There are other options out there. With this one, it came with an optic and it came with this bag. This bag was much better. I actually thought that this was what was going to come with this before I even wound up purchasing one. So I was a little bit bummed about that. But this one came with two 20-round magazines and three 17-rounders. Oh, this range bag is really nice. I really like this one. It's got 4 slots here, 4 slots here. A word about these two, they were sewn down the middle here so you couldn't fit another magazine there. I don't know what the point of it was, but I just took those threads out of there so I could fit 8 magazines in here now. And then it also has two slots in there, right? And then this area right here to zip in. So this one I bring out here a lot because you can cram a lot of magazines in there and other stuff as well. That I prefer over this, but you can't find that deal everywhere. This is going to be what you're going to find more across the board. Now that we've covered what you get with it, we will come in closer and compare the two and take it from there. All right, so here is a close-up of the Prodigies. They are very nice looking Pustolas. We definitely favor this one. It's got more personality, I think. These little stands here, these don't come with them, by the way. I 3D printed these. And also these base plates, I should mention that. These are 3D printed as well. The original base plates do not look like that. They kind of look like this, except for maybe an inch thick. And they've got that little cutout so you can pull it. So let's take this off and tell you guys what we've got going on here. So as I said, we've put 3,200 rounds through this baby, and it's been a good experience. It's definitely been fun. Has it been perfect? Well, we'll get into that in a minute. Just want to show you guys, just before we get to playing with it, that it is clear and empty, right? Nothing in there. It is hefty. She's definitely a buggin'. She's a cornbread fed girl, that's for sure. But the weight makes it shoot very flat. So when you compare these two as far as weight goes, this one is 2.5 pounds or 36.4 ounces. This one is 2.5, a little bit over 2.5, and it's 36.6 ounces with the optic and the light on there. So as I said, the mag capacity, you get 17 rounder, and then you've got also 20 round. Obviously very high capacity compared to some of the smaller striker fired where it can be like 10 rounds and things. That's one thing I like about the double stack, is that there's much larger capacity. I've seen some really nice looking 1911s, but in like 40, 45, something like that. But they're so limited on capacity. Some of them are like 7, 8 rounds. To me, I want a little more. Now the argument is, it's like, well, as long as you're accurate, then you shouldn't need 20, 30, 40, 50 rounds. Well, that's kind of what the government says too. So don't fall into that trap. They just want you to have limited capacity, right? Because you never know what you're going to come up against. This is what it looks like with the magazine in there. And if you see, it sticks out of the base. You can put a magwell on here. I've opted not to do that because I haven't yet found one that I like the design of. But that's what it looks like with the magazine. And just for reference, compared to like an X macro, the difference in the two, that's the difference you're looking at right there. So this one is flush with that, and then this base pad sticks out about an extra 1/4 of an inch. So if you can conceal this isn't all that much more. It's just about a 1/4 of an inch more. The texture on here is pretty nice. It's not so aggressive that it takes off skin. When I first got it, I was like, man, this thing feels fat. But that's because of coming off of, gripping something like this, right? Because if you look here, if you notice the gap right here and between my fingers there, okay, and then look at this one, it's much wider. Once I, trained with it a bit, I was like, oh yeah, this actually feels good now. It feels natural now. In the beginning, it was like, I don't know, it was like I was holding a tree trunk or something. There might be a variation of what you get. You see, this one has checkering, whereas this one has the similar grip texture to this. So I'm not sure why there is a difference there. I don't know if this is like an older design. That's about the only variation I've found between the two. Otherwise, it's pretty much, you know, the same across the board. If you're not familiar with the 1911, 2011, they operate with what's referred to as a grip safety. A lot of people don't like these. They like to pin them and do stuff like that. This one is very, very easy to engage. Let me just verify one more time. We are empty. So you see right here, I'm going to press the trigger and I'm just going to show you how lightly you have to touch that. It's very easy to engage this. There has not been a single time that I, not properly gripped it and the gun not go off. So that's not something that you have to worry about. Speaking of safety, the actual safety that keeps the gun from firing and sliding back, it's very easy to manipulate. It's very tactile. It does have a bit of a sharp corner on this one. I'm not feeling it right now as harshly as I usually do, but sometimes after a while it starts to hurt my finger right there. It's not very wide. I think a lot of people like them to be wider because some people, they actually use it for leverage in their grip. I don't do that. I just keep my thumb like that. But if that's your style, then I guess you would want that to be a little bit wider. The mag release here, show you guys, it works perfectly fine, right? Never had a problem with it releasing anything. It's just a little plain Jane is all. It's just literally just a little button. And even after all the shooting, 3,200 rounds, it still has a stiffness to it. Maybe a little oversprung, but it's better, I guess, for it to really hold on to that magazine rather than it to be loosey-goosey and then you press it and it doesn't really do its job, The last of the controls is the slide release. Now, this is something that we've swapped out. We actually swapped that out with EGW parts here. This one, for reference, this is the original, right? This is the stock one. And the reason I wanted to change it was because of how recessed it is. It doesn't stick out very far. I mean, and you can't really hit that with your thumb very well. And what a lot of shooters will do when they're using these, so they'll reload and then they'll hit it with their support hand. I don't want to do that because that now creates a whole new movement that I have to incorporate into my training. What the benefit is from this is you see how much that sticks out and you can hit it, boom, with your thumb. So now let's get to the trigger. Very little travel to that wall. And then, like I said, the break is almost instantaneous. Boom. Reset. Basically where you start out, again, boom. So very, very nice trigger on here. Okay, and we'll compare with the stock one that also has a good trigger. Neither one of them are bad by any means. This one, it feels like the same travel to the wall. A little heavier pull, but not nearly as dramatic as I've heard some people say. Again, and boom, instantaneous. This trigger was already good to begin with. Now that I put that EGW kit in here, this is a very light trigger. The average it measured was two and a half pounds. So to me, that's a very good trigger. I mean, it's very, very light. This one is about 3.5 pounds, so it's only about a pound more. Something like the X Macro, what I showed you guys earlier, from the factory, man, those things are like 5-6 pounds. And so it's double what these would be. So that's kind of one of the, like I said, one of the benefits to using this platform is that really crisp, really gentle trigger. Pow. Speaking of which, I did swap out some parts, more parts from EGW, and I put in an ignition kit. We will do a review on this, the full video. We'll have the installation, and that will be probably on Patreon. YouTube, they don't like you doing videos like this. They declare it gunsmithing, and they will demonetize your videos. So for these kinds of videos going forward, that will be on our Patreon channel. So we'll have a link to those in the description if you guys want to see those. It was very important to me to review this with stock internals, okay? I didn't change it until well after. I think actually 3100, somewhere around there, that's when I changed these. Everything else has been completely stock. I didn't even change the slide release here, right? So, and for me, that's important because I want to know, is this reliable with the parts that come in it, right? So even though you might see us do some customizations or upgrades on different pistols and things, if I'm reviewing it to the 500 or 1000 mark, then it's going to be with the stock internals, right? That way you don't get any kind of false ideas of it being reliable when really, nah, this gun's crap. This was already smooth to begin with, but now it's like even smoother. Like you don't feel it getting caught on that disconnector. This one, however, does have a bit of that problem, and this was something that a lot of people complained about, was it getting caught on the disconnector. So if you pull it back, right, when it goes forward, you can feel there's a friction right there, and it wants to stop. Before I tuned this, I could literally pull it back, and then I could go like that, and it would, like, it was that bad. So I've definitely smoothed it out some. A word on that, a lot of people are getting what's referred to as a Marvel cut, right? And to me, I found it to be probably a huge scam and totally unnecessary. And what they do is they go in there, there's a little block on the inside of the slide here, and they take and bevel that. And the idea is that it's got that slope, and so it would kind of gradually let it up. Well, it's not necessary at all. And why I say that is because I've actually taken this slide off and stuck it on that one, butter smooth. Okay, so it's got nothing to do with that little block in there. What it actually is it's a combination between that spring, the leaf spring in here, and the disconnector. And I don't think it's just the disconnector alone, because this has been polished as well. I polished the disconnector in there. Didn't change anything. You know, there's a lot of people sending their slides off to get milled and get that Marvel cut, and there's nothing marvelous about it. You'd be far better off to get something like this. That way you improve your overall performance, and you don't have to get something that's not going to do you any good. It does have a pick rail. It's only got one slot, the 4 1/4 inch, that is. We just went with the TLR7A. I love these lights. I use these on pretty much everything. A lot of people run the TLR1s, but they stick out really far, and I just don't like that. This operates with a 2-piece guide rod. That's one of the things I forgot to mention that comes in the bag. It does come with the Allen key, and you stick that Allen key in there and unscrew it. A lot of people also don't like that as well. I didn't mind it. I thought, man, these people are making a big fuss out of nothing, until I got out here on the range and needed to take it apart, and I forgot this thing here, and I had to walk all the way back to the house. And that was when I changed my mind. I was like, okay, this stinks. So we actually have a toolless guide rod on the way from Atlas Gunworks. So we got a lot of content coming on the Prodigy, a lot of content actually in general. So definitely make sure that you subscribe to the channel, because we got a lot of stuff coming your way, and you don't want to miss it. If you do, you're lame. So nice, deep serrations from the front and back, which is very good. It definitely makes it easier to do your press checks. Fiber optic sight. It comes with the green, nice bright green, and the rear sight is blacked out. If you have an optic on here, definitely co-witness. There's not a single optic I've stuck on here that I couldn't co-witness with. So I do like the height of the sights. I'm gravitating more toward green than red. The Viridian dot that came with this one is actually a green dot, and that's why I borrowed it from this one, because I was like, I actually like that color really, really well. This one is just a red dot, and the one we got on here right now, if you could probably see, is the Defender ST. It's a pretty big dot compared to the other ones that we had. It's a 6 MOA dot. The housing is pretty wide. Makes me wonder how large is the XL, if it's bigger than this. To me, that sounds like it would be a little bit overkill, because if you look through that thing's pretty tall and pretty wide as it is. I actually had the Vortex Venom on here, and the glass on it fell out. And so we sent it back to Vortex to have them repair it. They couldn't, so they just sent us this. And I actually liked that dot. It had a nice wide field of view. It didn't distort when you moved it around or anything. But one day I was just carrying it around, and I went to pull it back out, and the glass was gone.
Yeah.
So now let's talk about some of the downsides, or some of the cons, some of the negatives, however you want to refer to that as. This romance with the Prodigy has not been worry-free. I mean, there have been some issues. We've had some fights, some scuffles, and I've wanted to throw her into the river somewhere, you know? But you know what they say, love is war. So there are some quality control issues, some things that I would definitely like to see improved. First and foremost, the front sights. Okay, the front sight on this one, not installed very well. It had a lot of slack in it. When you shoot it, it would literally shift, right? Back and forth and back and forth. You couldn't see it with your eye, but on camera, you can see that. As you can imagine, with it going back and forth, it keeps hitting on that little lip there, and eventually it just flew out of there. I think it was around 1,300 rounds it flew out. Now, to be fair, I saw that it was a problem and wanted to address it on camera, but each time I went to do that review, like I said, it kept getting delayed. And so I pushed it a little further, and eventually 1,300 rounds, it was gone. I had to contact Springfield, and they took care of it, no problem. That's one thing I can say about them. Their customer service has been outstanding. Don't send them an email though. The email is a waste of time. I never got a response on the email, but either call them, or what I prefer is to chat. But that is one issue that I had. This one, however, the fiber optic was in there perfectly. I mean, it was not loose. It's just right. A bigger issue we had was with the screws here. So the ones on the trigger guard and the ones on the grip module. One day I was out here shooting, and not even expecting that anything had gone wrong. And then I go and clean it, and I'm like, there's 4 holes there. I don't recall seeing 4 holes, right? Because you got the 3 on the trigger here, and I saw an extra one right there. What had happened was the screws right here backed themselves out and just flew off into the wild blue yonder while I was shooting. They were super tiny screws. I mean, if you take them out, the threads are like almost non-existent. I noticed that those were gone, and so that's when I had to contact them again. They sent those out, no problem. So one thing I recommend, if you get one of these, or if you have one, take both of these sets of screws out, put Loctite on them, or you're gonna lose them. Because after I installed those, I noticed that these were walking themselves out as well. Speaking of these screws, there is an issue, and it's on both of them. The magazines, when they go up into the grip here, those screws stick out like this, just ever so slightly, and it's just enough to scratch on the tops of the magazines here. So every one of these round magazines now have an indentation where the finish has been taken off. So those screws are just a little bit too long. Conversely, these optic plate screws are too short. And I think why that is because the The optics are made to sit very low because of this plate system, which is good because you get co-witness with almost any optic you put on there. However, the screws, the threads on them are maybe like 4 or 5. I've had to retighten those screws. This makes the 5th time because of the optics change. But aside from changing optics, I had to retighten the screws over and over and over. Even with Loctite, they just back themselves out. And that stinks because when you have to do that, you've got to take the optic off. If you got to take the optic off, that means you've got to re-zero it, right? So it's a whole hassle, a whole just annoyance for no reason. So what I finally ended up doing was putting that Loctite on there 24 to 36 hours. I actually left it a little bit longer than 1 day. That finally took care of it. However, there's another issue. On the right, because this is cut so low, the screw will actually press down on your extractor, which may not immediately present problems, but I think was an issue for a lot of early owners and maybe some of subsequent owners now. So if it's pushing down on the extractor, then obviously it's not going to be able to move as freely as what it would. So another thing I recommend you do, if you can do this correctly, is take that right screw, just sand a couple thousandths of an inch off of it, put some bluing solution on it so it doesn't rust, and then Loctite it and leave it for, like I said, 24 hours, 36 hours. If you do all these things in advance, your experience with the Protege should be wonderful. Another thing that I noticed was that the magazines, the followers, basically, before I tinkered with them, they're just kind of floating on top. They're not, the springs don't really grasp them. So what I did was basically just take my pair of needle nose or multi-tool, whatever, and close that gap a little bit to where it will hold these. And so now it can go up and down and don't have to worry about it, you know, binding in there or taking a nosedive, anything like that. Sorry, I think we're being invaded. Another thing that's not, I guess you would say, a quality control issue, but it's kind of a quirk, is these Duramags. You put rounds in there, there's definitely about 1/4 of an inch of space there. So what that does is create a void when they're stacked in there, and then you get that right there. Like, I could really take them and be like maracas. So that's kind of interesting that this happens. Why that is these were obviously originally designed for like huge, bigger calibers, 40s, 45, stuff like that. And so instead of redesigning the entire magazine to fit 9mm, they just basically took the same housing and stuck 9mm in it. That does cause problems sometimes. Like I said though, if you squeeze the spring and make sure that it's gripping that follower, you shouldn't have any issues, because I haven't had any issues. And I do this with all my magazines, even striker fires, because sometimes that will happen with those as well. These are just some I guess, preventive maintenance that I suggest you do, because I did the same thing and worked out great for me. So now the big question, what about reliability, right? Of all these rounds we fired, have we had malfunctions? Have we had, problems? Did I have to send these back to Springfield to get them fixed like some people have mentioned? The answer is no. There was a stretch where I was getting failure to extract. But that was my oversight. What happened was we had purchased some new ammo and didn't get to go and shoot it right away. And so I loaded up all these magazines with a mixture of the ammo I had been using and then the new ammo that we had. but we didn't get to go film right away. Completely forgot that we had changed ammo and things like that. And so I'm shooting, and everything's going fine. But then all of a sudden, I get failure to extract. And long story short, I went down a rabbit hole, tuning the extractor, because I had heard that these were some common problems. And so I went messing with the extractors, looking at the ejector, looking at the magazines, right? Completely overlooked that I had just bought new ammo. If you have any issues with any kind of double feeding or extracting, right? Whether it's on striker fire, whether it's on 2011s, whatever, think of this simple thing first, check the ammo, right? Because we had gotten 1,000 rounds of Winchester 115 grain white box ammo, and I don't know what it was, but neither one of these liked it. Neither one of them. I ran the same thing through here, and it was getting light strikes. It was just, again, having issues. So I chalked that up to it being 100% the ammo. I mean, I could only get through
slowly, truthfully,
but I only got through about 300 rounds. And I sent the other 700 back to Winchester. We're waiting to see what they're going to do about that, hoping they're not going to send me more of it. Because I messed with tuned the extractors, I must have changed the angle or something, because this one was actually brought up on steel case ammo. So you got over 2,000 rounds of steel case ammo. This one, I don't know, maybe a couple hundred. But this one ran steel case ammo like a champ. Now, however, the ammo that it shot so many times now will not fire it. So I'm thinking I changed the angle of the extractor. Our friend Charles over at Shooting Straight with Sergeant Havoc, he actually recommends the EGW extractor. And I think he runs them in all of his. So we'll probably go with that and see if we can get back to, he strongly advises against using steel case ammo, but it's like the cheapest we can get, right? Because look, anytime we do one of these videos and we're going to put 1,000 rounds through something, that's going to be $200 for every gun that we get, right? If you guys want to see 1,000 rounds through this, that's $200. If you want to see 1,000 rounds through this, that's $200 every time, right? So if you like our videos, give us the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, man, because that helps, right? That little bit of ad revenue that YouTube sends us can at least cover the ammo, right? We'll take care of the pistolas and stuff, but the ammo, that can be the issue. All that to say that I'm going to just rule that these have been reliable, because like I said, I changed that ammo, got rid of that white box, and went back to, well, not back to steel, but I went to the Monarch 115 brass ammo at Academy. That's pretty good stuff. Not had a single issue with any of that. The steel too, if you can run it. But we went to that and they've been flawless ever since. I really was kicking myself for taking so much time, chasing my tail, trying to figure out what the problem was when it was just bad ammo. Now, would we recommend this to you, to our family, friends? If I just met a stranger in the gun shop and he was looking at the Prodigy or the Apollo 11, right? Because these are two of the budget 1911s, 2011s. I would point him toward one of these because the Apollo is a little bit cheaper, but it's had its fair share of problems. You don't have to go and immediately start throwing parts at it, right? You don't immediately have to go getting things like this. It's something that you can do later on if you so choose. Like I said, I put 3,000 rounds through this one stock. MEM parts are not, right? Because that's another thing that people complain about, the metal injection molded parts. Most people are never, ever, ever going to put 8 to 10, 12, 15,000 rounds through either of these guns. No gun, really. Most people will pick up a gun, put 50 rounds through it and say it's reliable, and run off and start carrying it. Put some high rounds on it if you can, you know, a little at a time before you start carrying it. Because you want to, if you present it, for God forbid you have to, you want it to be reliable and you want it to go bang instead of click. So whether you're going to carry one of these or if you're going to just use it for a range toy, I think it's fine for either application. This is my daily carry. I carry it with this holster Ranchon. That's a little Lee right there. This is from the MIE Productions company. We've used them a few times now. This is another holster that they've made us. I really like their stuff. Fits well, very good quality. So we'll have links to them in the description. Not sponsored, you just like their stuff and you know, figure maybe you guys will like them too. I believe that's everything I can say about this Pistola. This is my favorite Pistola now. It's the one I carry. I've trained so much with this one and looking forward to continuing my journey with it. As they say, happily ever after. So I believe that's going to do it for today's video. If you found this video helpful, we ask that you strike that like, swear that bell, subscribe and vibe with us and make us feel all appreciated, baby. We appreciate you guys for watching. As we always say, seek ye the Lord while he may be found, or call upon him while he is near. Because he is near unto those that be of a broken heart, and save such that be of a contrite spirit. Draw near to God, he will draw near to you. He resists the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. So cast yourself down before the Lord, and he will lift you up. Until next time, my friends, take care and God bless. And stay warm.